do you feel like the stablecoin adoption will speed up Bitcoin adoption or slow it down? Would love to hear you expand on that question, answer your own question, and maybe talk about it here with Andy a little bit.
Well, there's a reason they're concerned about it. And it's funny, whenever they're talking about their concern to the stability of the system, they're more concerned about stable coins than I think they are about Bitcoin. And the reason why is because you're getting that immediate clearance. They're used to adjudicating books each night as they close out and allowing time for this fractional reserve system to figure itself out, where there's impairment, where there's not impairment, and almost like a breather into the system. And by them being able to control the rails of the dollar itself and being able to settle not instantaneously, they're able to kind of control and manipulate the market in a way that keeps stability in the frame of reference. When you start handling a stable coin that immediately clears, that can't be undone. And that's the other really big point about a stable coin. Not only does it immediately clear, but you can't undo it. And that is something that I think scares the bejesus out of central bankers, is this idea that if I send Andy $10 and it immediately clears and he has it, nobody can go over there and claw it out of his account and send it back to me. And it happens near instantaneously. And so when you're in a fractional reserve system, that poses a major issue when they're used to markets being open for 7 or 8 hours and closed on the weekends and all of those kind of things. That's what they're scared about. And so my point in posing the question, and I didn't answer the question, but I guess I will now, I think it speeds up Bitcoin adoption, because what you're now having is the system just starts, think of it like a mechanical system where the pipes are closed off, they're only allowed to flow, and then everyone's making sure that the tanks are balanced, the holding tanks are balanced so that there's not too much pressure in the system and it blows. Now you're telling everybody you have to keep all the valves open, and this thing has to perform on its own without interruption. And if there's a systematic error in the plumbing, it's going to burst. And so I think they're very scared to allow all the valves to be opened. And I think they should be. So that's just how I personally see it. And, when you got Bitcoin running in the background, nobody can manipulate it. It's got a finite number. It's fixed. I mean, that's the beauty of Bitcoin versus a stable coin, is as they continue to base the dollar, the stable coin supply is just going to keep going up right with it. Right? They're going to put more in the treasury and they're going to mint more stable coins, and it's just going to keep inflating like the dollar. I mean, it doesn't, if they want to come out with their own, immediately settling irreversible dollar, which irreversible would be a complete misnomer because they're controlling, the protocol itself. They're going to keep adding more units. It doesn't matter. They can't do what Bitcoin's doing. It's just fundamentally impossible when you look at the fiscal side of how they make decisions in the spending habits across the globe and the incentive structure for them to keep expanding the credit. So, those are some of my thoughts on it. And when you look at the size of the stablecoin market and how fast it's growing, I think it's just scaring them half to death. And they should be very scared of this, because it's stepping in and it's totally bypassing them. And because it's competitive, and we've talked about the game theory a whole lot, they don't want to not play, because they know that if they don't, somebody else is going to step in there and play. And boy, oh boy, they're going to lose market share, right? This is a battle for clearance. This is a battle for the network effect of controlling the currency in the settlement layer of the world. And if they don't play the game, they're going to get beat out by the other players that are vying for it.
It's a pretty cool development, Andy. I didn't personally see Tether being adopted as a legal tender, but it makes sense. In retrospect, it is obvious to me. So it's interesting development. I'd love to hear you riff on what Andy had to say and just give your take in general.
Yeah, no, Preston nailed it. And the only thing I would add is, Tether is still pirate coin, right? I mean, yeah, it's a stable coin, but it's the non-compliant stable coin. And so it makes sense that it's being adopted by a government that is sort of on the fringe, let's say, at least of Western the Western geopolitical sphere. And it's a good reminder, I think, to me, of how the government has abused its weapon of sanctions and cutting countries off from the global dollar system. I think that that's one of those weapons that you use sparingly, and the U.S. has not used it sparingly, right? The government has not used it sparingly. Basically it gets used all the time, and countries are forced into a position of routing around. They really want to use dollars because they're short-term stable in purchasing power, and they're generally accepted. But Tether is this unique, interesting beast that has managed to generate a ton of market share. I don't know, $72 or $75 billion worth. And I do expect compliant stable coins to be a much bigger deal, and I do expect USDC to sort of continue taking share of the overall stablecoin market. But we should not be surprised that Tether, in retrospect, as you say, we should not be surprised that Tether is getting broader adoption, especially among countries that have, let's say, spotty access or worry about their access to the U.S. dollar system. But yeah, I was surprised. I mean, I did not anticipate that happening. But I was also surprised by El Salvador adopting Bitcoin this year. Sorry, go ahead, Preston.
Oh no, I was just going to say, I think it's a little bit of a risky move by them to specifically choose Tether because, if the Fed gets upset with this decision and they want to go play hardball and they want to try to shut down Tether, now you got a country that's relying on this legal tender token that basically just got chopped right at the knees. Because the Fed can do that. They can shut off, they can claw their treasury, Tether's treasury of dollars right out from underneath of them. And then it gets nasty for that stable coin. So where Andy's talking about the policy, I agree with him. I think that this is where it's going to be really interesting to see how the entities that are managing these various stable coins, and Andy mentioned USDC, and I agree with him. I think that they seem to be playing the politics best out of the stable coins that are out there. And it's going to be interesting to see which one, because I suspect what's going to happen is you're going to have the U.S. and other government entities that are going to say, all right, we like you. You seem to play nice, and you are now going to be an accredited entity that can deal with stable coins, and you're going to listen to everything that we say. And if you don't like it, we're going to shut you down and we can pick somebody else that will play with us. And I think that that's where it's going to get a little interesting on the stablecoin market. And a lot of these other tokens, I don't think they really understand the power that the Fed has at controlling those specific rails. And in the background of all this is Bitcoin, which is just like nobody can shut that down, right? Like you cannot shut down Bitcoin. But these other things that rely on treasuries with dollar deposits that the Fed can either say yes or no, whether they actually sit there or not, I think that's a very important consideration as you're thinking about stable coins.